You're listening to 15 Minutes of Flame with Robert Phoenix.
Well, good morning. How is everybody? This is Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas, where the item on the school today is chicken tacos. It's Taco Tuesday. How about that? How is everybody? It is May 15th, and what a day May 14th was, and May 15th promises to be right up there as well. Of course, astrologically, we have the new moon in Uranus conjunction. Uranus is now in the sign of Taurus, and it has made itself felt quite clearly and distinguished apart from Uranus and Aries, although with Uranus and Aries we got a lot of violence, and that was still happening yesterday with Uranus and Taurus. If you were following anything that was going on with the opening of the new embassy in Jerusalem, if you are a MAGA man or a MAGA woman, today or yesterday was a great day for you. A great day in MAGA history. We have a little chatter there. Who's that? Who's in the chat room? Oh, it's Lori. Hi, Lori. What's going on? Great day in MAGA history. You know, I follow some of those MAGA nuts over on Twitter. People like Jack Posobiec, Mike Cernovich. Mike Cernovich keeps having these little Twitter questions. Go ahead, ask me anything. So I asked Mike Cernovich, who did 9/11? Mike Cernovich never replies. I wonder why he never replies. Why does Mike Cernovich never answer that question? So then I asked him yesterday. He had his another, go ahead, ask me anything. Well, I said, how come you never answer my question about who did 9/11? Crickets, Mr. Cernovich. The website, the Gateway Pundit, posted these young guys over in Jerusalem wearing their yarmulkes with MAGA on the yarmulkes. Close to 150 comments on the story, every single one of them glowing positive, gloating, chest-thumping, celebratory. This is the arrival of making America great again. Ironically, it's not even in our own country. It's some sort of weird projection that's going on. Some sort of strange archetypal mythopoetic projection where it's not even our country that's in some ways being made great again. There was a lot of death. Over 50 people were killed yesterday with the protests that were taking place by the Palestinian people, which is basically saying, hey, yeah, look, another land grab. And not only is it a land, but here's the big deal, right? It legitimizes the Israeli presence in Gaza, formerly Palestine. It's like Hey, this is our territory. This is our territory. As the United States recognizes that this is the capital. This is the capital of Israel. Because that's how it works, right? With the embassies, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Although in this country, there are a number of embassies all over, not just Washington, D.C. And scores of people were wounded yesterday. What were the numbers? What was the count? This is from Partisan Girl. 2,000 protesters. Let me see if I can get some numbers on it. I know over 50 were actually killed, and a large number of Palestinians were wounded. And then you had Javanka showing up. These people are so disconnected from reality. It's frightening. And Jared Kushner was there to basically promote that this was an effort towards peace and that the protests were not going to help solve the problem. Look, I'm going to cut to the chase here, and I'm going to tell you that we are encroaching on what I would consider to be a rather slippery slope to fascism. You get fascism from either side. One looks like it's more socially Marxist, communist in nature, and the other will be more capitalistic in nature, but we're headed towards systems of control. Big time systems of control. And the way that the game has been set up is that we become so polarized and the language has become so loaded that if you have some form of reticence, right? Any kind of reticence, any kind of doubt, any kind of disbelief, let alone outrage, then when you criticize something now, you're going to be put in one camp or one bucket or the other. If you criticize the fact that you really don't believe in what's going on in that part of the world, and that you really do believe that Palestinians are being held at a different kind of standard than everybody else, that they are part of what, for all intents and purposes, appears to be an apartheid state. If you have those beliefs, well, guess what? You're in a bucket that puts you in the Demorat category, or you're a libtard, or you're a commie. And if you're not, well, then you're just flat out anti-Semitic. Last time I checked, the Palestinian people were Semitic. So how could you be anti-Semitic if you're actually taking a stand for the Palestinian people? But these are not even talking points anymore. These are shouting points. And so what's happening is we're being forced into these two camps. And it's not just the visceral reaction on the left or the right, or I hate to use the word shill. Shill and troll are just so overused. But there does appear to be people who have been put into place and they're on a payroll and they're there to promote an agenda and to promote a political outlook. And I would say that Cernovich and Jack Posobiec go right to the top. And I'm sure there's others I'd have to filter through. And I read a lot of both left and right people on my Twitter feed. It's like Robert Reich is good for about 2 posts a day. I mean, he must be, he must teach, maybe one class at Berkeley, because he spends most of his time making videos. So I read a little Robert Reich, I read a little Bernie Sanders, a little Bernie. I'm certainly up to date and in touch with the Parkland 6 kids. Read their stuff. I should probably subscribe to Hillary just so I can stay in touch with what Hillary's thinking and tweeting to the world. But that's, so we're seeing now this new narrative, and this is how the game has been set up. I mean, even if you look at somebody like QAnon or whatever QAnon is, and by the way, I think QAnon lost a few members after yesterday. I just don't think you should be sniffing the Q glue. Don't be sniffing that Q glue, and beware of people that are promoting QAnon. Just beware of them. Because they're either engaged as an asset and promoting something that is leading people astray, stringing them along, or they're just completely clueless and they are what's known as useful dupes. And I'm not going to name any names, but there's plenty of them out there. And a lot of them have pretty significant amounts of video traffic. Just keep that in mind. But you can even see it in the QAnon faction. Well, I've got people that have been connecting with my broadcasts and to some extent my site for a long time, and they've picked up on the Q thread, and it's fine. I don't care if you want to read QAnon, read QAnon. If you want to believe that that's going to be the mythos and the cosmology and the spiritual and intellectual mana for you so that you can begin to assemble your life accordingly and believe in this disembodied spirit, which is really what it is. It's a disembodied spirit. If you choose to do that, then that's your you're right if you want to. But once you check into that, it's like the Hotel California. You may check out any time you like, but you can never leave. I mean, look, you can leave, but I've talked about this before, and it is the power of belief. And belief can be a really powerful tool. Don't get me wrong. I'm not denouncing belief. In the right perspective, in the right place, belief can be very powerful. Faith is even better. So you can muster up some faith. Courage. It's another really good quality. Something we all work on. But the problem is like once you invest in these things with your body, mind, spirit, pulling out from them can be difficult. And it happens. It's like whether it's QAnon or Ron Paul or Donald Trump or Kurt Cobain or whoever, right? Pulling out from this experience of being connected to somebody in a way where you inadvertently give your power over to them can be very painful, because the first thing you have to do is admit you were wrong. I mean, how painful. I didn't support Obama. I kept saying, hey, if this guy's worth his salt, here's what he's going to do. He's going to roll back the Patriot Act. He's going to close Gitmo. And he's going to get us out of the Middle East. Did he do any of those things? No. Not one. That's how I gauge my litmus with Obama. Even though I didn't vote for him, it's like, okay, if he's all that in the bag of chips, he's going to be the anti-Bush, because that's how we were voting at that time, right? He was the anti-Bush. We had 8 years of good old boy, neocon-soaked politics. We wanted that. We wanted change. We wanted hope and change, and there he was. With no discernible past. Nothing really to indict him for anything he ever voted on, said, or did, unless, of course, you dug much deeper, in which case you found some very sordid things which were neglected by the media. Of course they were, and they will be to this day. But now the big deal, the big thing is how Trump is undoing Obama's legacy. Oh my God. People are salivating, they're frothing at the mouth with their rabid, reactionary, schadenfreude intoxication until there's nothing left of Obama. He's wiped out from the pages of history, all in a matter of 2.5 to 3 years. You know, there's a painting that was done and it hangs in, I think, the Obama Foundation or the Obama Library, where you play basketball and Fortnite and all that stuff. There's that painting where I think he's sitting in front of that ivy wall, and there's this meme now where it's a triptych, and with each progressive frame, he goes deeper into that wall until he's gone. There's no more Obama left. As much as I didn't like Obama, it's an important part of our history. It's an important part of our history, not a great one. And I'm not sure where we're headed is going to be all that great either, to be quite honest with you. Because I thought that people could use this energy that was coming through with the Trump election to become really independent, to regain some level of sovereignty and personal empowerment, to disentangle from groupthink, the mind lock, the politically correct codex, that this would be an opportunity to catalyze those parts of us. And really what it's done is it's created two very, very disparate, polarized, and dualistic camps. And even inside of that, in the so-called, free thought or truther or alternative news or the red pill community, there's even a division. Because once you get sucked up into the whirlpool of QAnon, and the franchise owners, because to me, QAnon is like, I always want to say McDonald's, but I feel like QAnon is like the Domino's. QAnon is the Domino's of the truth movement, and everybody that pimps QAnon out and breaks down the codes and the next drop, and they're just franchises. They're just franchises. They're not even really thinking for themselves. They think they're thinking for themselves, but they're not thinking for themselves. Taking somebody else's material, interpreting it, which is really what's going on anyway, for the most part. I mean, if you look at like Dark Journalist, what's he doing? Well, he's rooting around and he's looking at Madame Blavatsky and Theosophy, and he's connecting this dot, and it's okay. It's okay. It's what's out there, and we're trying to assemble a version of reality so that we can feel okay while we're lost in space. Oh, this makes sense, and this makes sense, and this makes sense, and this makes sense. Whew, good. I thought I was the only one who was really fucked up here. Got it. Okay, well, this explains everything. Oh my God, thank you. Yeah, I mean, some of this stuff is actually valid, real, and true. Doesn't mean it's invalid. I think it's important. But again, what's it doing, right? Are you making your life better? Are you striving towards something? Or are you content with having these outside messages or outside blueprints or networks or docs or whatever they are, or drops, assemble reality for you so that you can let somebody else take care of the business? There is a validity to having one's perception of what life on this planet is about and has been for a very long time. And we're in that moment. We're in that time. It's inevitable. The dam is breaking. But what happens when the water bursts, and where are they diverting that water to? That's, I think, the bigger question. So if you listen to my show and you've got some passing interest in any other, channel, persona, network, please just use some, I hate the word discernment now. That's even overused. have a good filter. Just really have a good filter. And hold that filter up to who you are and where you are and what you're doing. Is it improving your life? Is it making your connections with other people better? And I'm not talking about connections with other people inside of a bubble. Those connections are easy. Having bubble connections is not hard. Having connections with other people outside of your bubble, well, now that's a whole nother story. So what happens now is that there's this really narrow passageway for us to have an open dialogue about what's going on in the world, how we see things, and if we disagree with this, we're an anti-Semite, or we're left-leaning libtard, or we're a demo rat. Or if you're on the other side and you criticize, well, look at what's happening in the schools, especially in colleges, social Marxist doctrinaire theory, and not down with it, not down with political correctness. Oh, you're a Nazi. You're a Nazi. You're a hate-filled Nazi bigot. Oh, you must be a Republican. Like somebody said, you must watch Fox News. Like, they were really going after, you must watch Fox News. No, I don't watch Fox News. Not at all. Every now and then I'll see a Fox News snippet, just like I'll see a CNN snippet, whatever. But this is the world we're living in now. Because people can't handle what I would call, to some extent, right, moral ambiguity. Because on one side, they're convinced of their moral correctness. Like the left has their version of moral correctness. You check this box, this box, this box, this box. You believe in this, 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 and this, and you align with the kind of the moral canon of that side. If you're on the right, you check this box, this box, this box, this box, and you align with the moral canon on that side. And if you don't check all the boxes, then you're in a place of what can be termed moral ambiguity because people don't know where you stand on certain things. What's this person all about? But they're here and they believe in this thing, but over here they believe in that. It just blows my mind. Because we are so engaged in really at times narrow thinking. And I even have to check myself and think, well, can I expand my thinking a little bit more? Can I look at this from a different perspective? And that's a really good exercise. If you find yourself not doing that, then you're not growing and you're not allowing for the inspiration and the circulation of the winds of spirit and truth to move through you. And that's just the way that it is. And we all have our predispositions. We all have our prejudices. We all have things in the world that we don't like. I don't know too many people who are just okay with everything. And if they are, they're probably either really, really enlightened or they're sitting on a park bench drooling. I'm sorry. It's just, that's. Some interesting stuff coming out on Jordan Peterson. We're going to talk about quite a few things today. But an interesting piece on Jordan Peterson. Hate to pop the Jordan Peterson bubble for all you Jordan Peterson lovers out there. And I do like Jordan Peterson. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of interesting things that Jordan Peterson brings to the table. I like the fact that Jordan Peterson is a messenger of free speech for the most part and free thought for the most part. However, guess what? He edited a report for the high-level panel on sustainable development. So Jordan Peterson worked on the UN Secretary General's high-level panel on sustainable development, editing a document that was released in 2013 entitled A New Global Partnership, Eradicate Poverty and Transform Economies Through Social Development. One of the panel members of this UN High Council was none other than John Podesta. In July 2012, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon announced the 27 members of a high-level panel to advise on the global development framework beyond 2015. The target date for the Millennium Development Goals, or also known as the MDGs. The panel was part of the Secretary General's post-2015 initiative mandated by the 2010 MDG Summit. UN member states have called for open, inclusive consultations involving civil society, the private sector, academia, and research institutions from all regions, in addition to the UN system to advance the development framework beyond 2015. There is a global ethic for a globalized world based on our common humanity, the Rio principles, and the shared ethos of all traditions. Do as would be done by, or as thou wilt. Look what it says on page 18 under the heading Global Impact by 2030. International migration. The universal human rights and fundamental freedoms of migrants must be respected. These migrants make a positive economic contribution to their host countries by building up their labor force. The deliberations, this is from the acknowledgement section of the report, the deliberations of the panel were informed by the broad consultative processes conducted by the United Nations as directed by the Secretary General. In our terms of reference, this includes national and global thematic consultations under the aegis of the United Nations Development Group, the UNDG, regional consultations undertaken by the regional commissions consultations with business around the world under the guidance of the UN Global Compact, and the views of the scientific and academic community as conveyed through the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. We are grateful for the perspective these extensive consultations provided. Okay. So our good friend, well, not my good friend, I actually tried to get him on my show. So I have to really think about what I'm saying, as a Jordan Peterson would clearly advocate in this moment. So Henrik Palmgren from Red Ice has this to say. Some initially doubted that Peterson was actually involved with this UN agenda, since he's not listed among the 27 members of the panel. However, in an interview with the Darkroom podcast in October 2016, Peterson openly declared that he was not merely involved with the UN HLP report, but actually wrote the underlying narrative for it. And here's the quote from the podcast. I'm a media whore, you know. I'm a professor at the University of Toronto so far. I'm a clinical psychologist. I have a clinical practice. I'm a business consultant. I do executive coaching, mostly for senior partners at big law firms. I run a testing business for the world's biggest early stage technology incubator in California called the Founder Institute. They've started 2,000 businesses in the past 5 years, and I've screened all 30,000 of their entrants because I know how to predict entrepreneurial ability. I designed a program called Future Authoring that has helped more than 7,000 university students improve their grades by 25% and decrease their dropout rate by about the same amount. I worked on the UN Secretary General's High Panel for Sustainability report that was delivered, I believe, in 2013, and rewrote the underlying narratives to strip out most of the ideological claptrap. His involvement with the UN was also confirmed in his bio at Moses Znaimer's conference, Ideacity. Dr. Jordan Peterson has been a dishwasher, gas jockey, bartender, beekeeper, and railway line worker. He's taught mythology to lawyers, doctors, and businessmen, consulted for the UN Secretary General's high-level panel on sustainable development, helped his clinical clients manage depression, OCD, anxiety, and schizophrenia, and lectured extensively internationally. Dr. Peterson has published more than 100 scientific papers and revolutionized the psychology of religion with his book, Maps of Meaning, The Architecture of Belief. As a Harvard professor, he was nominated for the prestigious Levinson Teaching Prize. His YouTube channels and videos have over 8 million views, and his lectures on mythology were turned into a popular 13-part series on TVO. Dr. Peterson's online self-help program, the Self-Authoring Suite, has been featured in Oprah Magazine, CBC Radio, and NPR. Has helped over 100,000 people resolve the problems of their past and radically improve their future. So here's what I think about this. First of all, he's a Gemini. He is a Gemini. Should I say any more? Jordan Peterson is a Gemini. He's going to play both sides. That's just the way he is. And he won't have any moral compunction around it. And in his mind, he says, well, I'm getting out the ideological claptrap. So maybe in his own way, he's kind of hacking the underlying narrative and making it perhaps less ideological, what shall we say. And at which point, maybe he's doing the work of the devil's advocate, which is what Gemini does. I'm just here to tell you, you've got to be, we live in a world that's dominated by economics, and people need things, and they need stuff, and they need power, they need prestige, and we all have some degree of that in our lives. And that's just truth. Some degree of it. How much? Well, that's determined by what we do for it and our actions. Nobody's perfect. I can't say that I'm some shining moral beacon, but I do my best to live my life in a way, especially now, where things are about as congruent as I can make them. And if they're not, then I've got to take a good hard look at my incongruence. Let's put it that way. So just a little bit of info there to get you to think about who we put our attention towards. And it doesn't take long now for stuff to come up or come through. Kind of rip through the cracks. So today is actually very interesting. Today is actually the first day of Ramadan. How about that? You think they timed this with the opening of the consulate there? The embassy? Do you think they timed it accordingly? I would say so. I would absolutely say so. So it'll be interesting to see what happens today. Probably not as much as what happened yesterday, but a lot did happen yesterday. Hell of a lot. Big power outage here, 50-mile square radius, and people were talking about all kinds of crazy things happening with their electronics yesterday. Power surges, refrigerators going out. My mother's gas water heater went out. Guess what? They had an earthquake in California, 3.5. And my mother, actually, who lives in California, said it felt more like a 5. And she's been through some earthquakes. So there was a pretty big rumbler. They've got some activity happening in Yellowstone, and here we go. It's only really the first day with Uranus and Taurus conjuncting this new moon today. We have to keep our eyes on more seismic activity taking place, not only in Hawaii, but the Ring of Fire, even California and Yellowstone. We're in it now. We are totally in it now. Let's see, we got another little chip message in the old chat room there we have. Let's see. There's Mary. It's alive. Hi, Mary. Mary Black is back. She's back in black. No Judy today. Okay. What else happened yesterday? You know what else happened yesterday? Sports gambling became legalized. Let's wrap your head around that one for a second. Sports gambling became legalized. So what that means is that the Supreme Court basically said states can figure this out for themselves. So if a really poor state like, say, Mississippi wants to legalize sports gambling, you can bet your ass they will be on it in a heartbeat, even if their constituency or the local religious community might not like it. Because if you're a state that's not making a lot of money, this could be a cash cow for you. Now, not every state will legalize gambling, but if you don't legalize it, guess what's going to happen? Let's say what state borders Mississippi? Georgia. So let's say you're Mississippi and you legalize gambling. You're Georgia and you don't. Well, guess what's going to happen? You're going to miss out on the revenue that your neighbor state is getting. So why would you take the moral high ground? Nobody takes the moral high ground anymore anyway. It's rare when they do. So of course you're going to go for it. Of course you're going to allow gambling. So think about this just for a moment. Think about it for a moment. And this is what Mark Cuban, who's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, was talking about. If you're at a baseball game, you could bet from inning to inning in live real-time betting. If you're at a basketball game, you can bet on quarters. You can bet on who's going to win the next quarter. You can bet on who's going to have the most points in the second half. There's all kinds of options that will be available to you in real time. And of course, they'll use 5G to sell this. Oh, you got to have 5G because you want your bets to come across the networks faster and faster. Now, are they going to use that? No, probably not. But they could if they wanted to. Oh, man, I got to get my bet in. I need that freaking 5G. Give me that 5G, brother. I need to make sure that Stephen Curry gets 18 points in this quarter. I'm just seeing people walking into, high school football stadiums, watching their kid play. And let's say there's a baseball game going on that night or basketball game going on that night. And they walk up to the concessionaire or the person taking tickets. Hey, do you know if the stadium's wired for 5G? I've got some heavy action tonight. I just got to make sure that I get my bets in here. Now, that also means that people are going to be, guess what, more into their screens because they're going to watch what's going on. Oh, man, I got some action going on in that Akron versus Youngstown State game. I've got the over. And in fact, I have the over with Akron covering. There's the guy watching that Akron Youngstown State game getting played out on his cell phone. So he can live on every single play and hopefully get his $100, $200, $1,000. This could be, look, I'm not a prude. If people, again, you want to gamble. But making it easier for people to gamble is not always the greatest thing. Because guess what? People have addictions. They have addictions. There was a time in my life when I liked gambling. In fact, I probably liked it too much. I lived kind of close to Tahoe, and I would go there and I'd play the games in Tahoe, and I'd bet on football. And I'm glad I don't live that close to Tahoe anymore. Or Vegas for that. When I go, I play, whatever. It's not a big deal. But I don't live there, and I don't have a lifestyle out of it. But it's interesting, on the day that the embassy was christened, sports gambling became legalized for all intents and purposes. That's one of those like interesting sort of duality operations. There's all this pomp and circumstance and, the arrival of the states and the recognition of the United States, this being the capital of Israel and the religious and sacred and holy context that all that implies, and the piety that spilled forth as a result of this momentous moment. Well, on the other hand, essentially, America just became one giant casino. This is really interesting. I find it fascinating. It's almost like it's an occult operation. And while Donald Trump in Atlantic City was never involved in sports gambling, it's one thing you couldn't do there because the casinos were too close to the New York teams. So you could go there and play 21 or, baccarat or slots or whatever and lose money. But you couldn't bet on sports because it was much too close to the New York sports market. Well, that's all changed now. So yesterday was a great day for Trump. Holy smokes. He got the embassy relocated. Everybody in Israel is wearing MAGA caps and MAGA yarmulkes. And sports gambling just got legalized in the country. What a great day. Too much winning. There's just way too much winning going on. Did you see the headline for was it the New York Post? Let's see if I can find this thing. It's the Daily News. Daddy's little ghoul. It's a picture of Ivanka Trump with the subheadline, 55 slaughtered in Gaza, but Ivanka all smiles at Jerusalem embassy unveil. It's really interesting how, people can get gassed, theoretically, not even real people, places like Aleppo. Or real people that are actually killed in places like Aleppo. And all of a sudden, the media is all up in arms about it. Oh, look what's happened here. Look what's happened here. This regime is horrible. We've got to go in. We've got to change it. We've got to do something. We've got to go fire some missiles or some bombs. We've got to kick Assad out. And then when there's 55 people killed in Gaza, there's that number 55. Killed in Gaza. And yesterday was a 55 day. Did you know that? It was 5 and then 14, which is 1 plus 4 equals 5. 55 day. But nobody's going to raise a stink over this. Oh, they're just, they're terrorists. They're vermin. They're the scum of the earth. Setting a bad precedent here. That's all I can say. Bad precedent. Bad precedent. And the way the game has been set up, you're forced into one camp or the other. Theoretically. That's not always the case. If you can navigate through this. But you got to be smart. You got to be fluid. And you got to have a sense of humor. And not take some of this so seriously. Right? We have to somehow keep what's happening in perspective. And that's really vitally important. Vitally important. Should we take a little trip in the time tunnel? We haven't done that for a while. Why don't you climb on in, buckle up into the John Teeter, Tesla, Trump, Marty McFly time machine. Let's take a trip back into Well, today is May 15th. It is the 135th day of the year. And guess what? There are 230 days that remain until the end of the year. Here's a really interesting little factoid. Back in 495 BC, a newly constructed temple in honor of the god Mercury was dedicated in ancient Rome on the Circus Maximus between the Aventine and the Palatine Hills. Despite the Senate and the consuls, the people awarded the dedication to a senior military officer, Marcus Laetorius. So here we have the opening of the embassy Jerusalem, and in 495, We had the opening of a newly constructed temple in honor of the god Mercury. Of course, President Donald J. Trump happens to be a Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. It was a good day back in 221 as Liu Bei, Chinese warlord, proclaims himself Emperor of Shu Han, the successor of the Han Dynasty. 221, that's my apartment number. I like that. I like that. I'm going to proclaim myself as the Emperor of the Orchard Grove Apartments. Let's see. 392. Emperor Valentinian II is assassinated while advancing into Gaul against the Frankish usurper Arbogast. He is found hanging in his residence at Vienne. Well, you just don't advance against the Frankish usurper Arbogast. Takes a lot of gall. Takes a lot of gall to do that. In 589, King Othari marries Theodelinda, daughter of the Bavarian Duke Garibaldi I. A Catholic, she has great influence among the Lombard nobility. In 908, the 3-year-old Constantine VII, the son of Leo VI the Wise, is crowned co-emperor of the Byzantine Empire by Patriarch Euthemius I at Constantinople. It's like to be a six-year-old co-emperor. Do you have any idea what that's like to be co-emperor? I think when I was 6, I really thought I was a co-emperor with my father. That didn't work out so well. Let's see what we have here. What else? Back in the glory days of 1252, Pope Innocent IV issues the papal bull ad extirpanda, which authorizes but also limits the torture of heretics in the medieval Inquisition. You can torture, but you can only torture so much, and just in a few particular ways. Selective torturing. Good guy, that Pope Innocent IV. Back in 1525, insurgent peasants, led by Anabaptist pastor Thomas Müntzer, unfortunately were defeated at the Battle of Frankenhausen, ending the German Peasants' War in the Holy Roman Empire. They gave it a good go. I wonder what the over-under on that was. In 1536, Anne Boleyn, Queen of England, stands trial in London on charges of treason, adultery, and incest. She is condemned to death by a specialty selected jury. And in 1567, Mary Queen of Scots marries James Hepburn, the 4th Earl of Bothwell, her third husband. Another interesting day for heretics took place in 1618 when Johannes Kepler confirms his previously rejected discovery of the third law of planetary motion. He first discovered it on March 8th, but soon rejected the idea after some initial calculations were made. So he circled back. He orbited back to it. Let's see. Guess what? This is for you, David Hogg. In 1718, James Puckle, a London lawyer, patents the world's first machine gun. On this day, 1718, May 15th, James Puckle. 12 years after that, in 1730, Robert Walpole effectively became the first Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. 1776, the American Revolution, the Fifth Virginia Convention instructs its Continental Congress delegation to propose a resolution of independence from Great Britain, paving the way for the United States Declaration of Independence. This day, 1776. In 1792, War of the First Coalition, France declares war on the Kingdom of Sardinia. 1793, man takes flight. Diego Marin Aguilar, the Eagle, right? Diego the Eagle flies a glider for about 360 meters at a height of 5 to 6 meters during one of the first attempted manned flights. 1796, War of First Coalition. Napoleon enters Milan in triumph. Let's see. 1811 was a big day for Paraguay. It was the big middle finger to Spain. Declared independence. In 1817, this is the opening. This is a great day for the mental health industry. In 1817, it's the opening of the first private mental health hospital here in the United States. The Asylum for the Relief of Persons Deprived of the Use of Their Reason. It's now called Friends Hospital in Philadelphia. The Asylum for the Relief of Persons Deprived of the Use of Their Reason. They were deprived. 1836, Francis Bailey observes Bailey's beads during an annular eclipse. 1848, serfdom is abolished in Habsburg, Galicia, as a result of the 1848 revolutions. The rest of the monarchy followed later in the year. Bad day for Native American history in this country. Today, in this day in 1850, 1 year after the gold rush, of course, the Bloody Island Massacre takes place in Lake County, California. That's near Clear Lake, by the way, right? California, in which a large number of Pomo Indians are slaughtered by a regiment of the United States Cavalry. Back in 1851, just 2 years after the discovery of gold in California, the first Australian gold rush is proclaimed, although the discovery had been made 3 months earlier. Of course. It's like people who knew about the gold got in, got a shit ton of it, and started to build up businesses where they'd supply the miners with just about everything they needed. And then they started making money off the miners. Let's see what else we have here. For all you opera lovers, today in 1858, the opening of the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden, London, this day. 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signs a bill into law creating the United States Bureau of Agriculture. It is later named the United States Department of Agriculture. So this day in May, under the sign of Taurus, happy birthday, Department of Agriculture. It's your day. I wonder if they're having a special day at the Department of Ag. Oh, let's see. What else do we have here? It's a big day for women. 1869, women's suffrage in New York. Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton formed the National Women Suffrage Association, the NWSA, which is it's a big day for women. Now, let's see what we have here. Guess what? Wow, this is really interesting. This coincides with the gambling piece. 1905, Las Vegas is founded when 110 acres in what would become downtown are auctioned off. I'm not sure Vegas really likes this betting thing, by the way. Today's rich, man. Today's got a lot of history. In 1911, Standard Oil Company of New Jersey versus the United States Supreme Court declares Standard Oil to be an unreasonable monopoly under the Sherman Antitrust Act and orders the company to be broken up. Well, it did, and guess what? The Rockefellers made even more money off the various subsidiaries of Standard Oil. It was great for them. There's just more ways for them to make money. Hey, sure, we'll break it up. We'll own every little piece of the companies that are subdivided out of it. This is interesting. 1911, same year, more than 300 Chinese immigrants are killed in the Torreon massacre when the forces of the Mexican Revolution, led by Emilio Madero, take the city of Torreon from the Federales. I wonder if there's any bad blood between the Mexicans and the Chinese over that. Do they even know that happened? You know? Where's the never forget about that? Let's see what else we have here. Lots of striking going on. There was a Winnipeg general strike in 1919, Greek occupation of Smyrna in 1919. The first Arabic communist newspaper founded on this day in 1925. It's called Al-Insania. 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 First Arabic communist newspaper. Guess what else today is? Today's Mickey Mouse's birthday. That's right. This day in 1928, Mickey Mouse makes his debut in a cartoon called Plane, Plane, Crazy. Happy birthday, Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is under MK Ultra mind control with Disney. Let's see here. Bad day for the Prime Minister of Japan back in 1932. Inukai Tsuyoshi assassinated. Coup d'etat. Let's see what else. McDonald's opens its first restaurant in San Bernardino, California. You know, that's really interesting because Ray Kroc and Walt Disney are from the same small town in Illinois. And they both went to California and made their fortunes in two of the most probably culture-changing, impactful institutions of the 20th century. And while Ray Kroc did not own McDonald's at that time, it was the McDonald's brothers. It's 12 years after the debut of Mickey Mouse, which happens on the same day. Life is a trip, isn't it? Let's see, what else do we have here? Joe DiMaggio begins his 56-game hitting streak. It was a big deal. To this day, nobody has topped it. If you're a whack, today's your day. On the same day that Susan B. Anthony and Miss Stanton formed their organization, today is the birthday of the whacks. How about that? 1948, following the expiration of the British mandate for Palestine, the Kingdom of Egypt, Transjordan, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia invade Israel, thus starting the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. This day. 1957, Britain tests its first hydrogen bomb in the Pacific Ocean. 58, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 3. A year later, on the same day, Soviet Union launches Sputnik 4. 3 years later, Project Mercury, the launch of the final Mercury mission. Mercury Atlas 9 with astronaut Gordon Cooper on board. He becomes the first American to spend more than a day in space, and the last American to go into space alone. In 1969, People's Park, California, Governor Ronald Reagan has an impromptu student-owned park by the university fenced off from the student anti-war protesters, sparking a riot. I've been to People's Park many times. It's a dump. 1970, President Nixon appoints Anna Mae Hayes and Elizabeth Holsington the first female United States Army generals. This is a good day for women, man. Am I right? Heck of a day for women. Let's see. Wax, first general, Susan B. Anthony. There's no mistakes here. In 1988, the Soviet-Afghan War, after more than 8 years of fighting, the Soviet Army begins to withdraw 115,000 troops from Afghanistan. 1991, Edith Cresson becomes France's first female premier. How about that? In 1997, the United States government acknowledges the existence of the secret war in Laos and dedicates the Laos Memorial in honor of Hamong and other secret war veterans. In 2008, California became the second U.S. state after Massachusetts in 2004 to legalize same-sex marriage after the state's own Supreme Court rules a previous ban unconstitutional. It was one judge. It was an activist judge who was clearly engaged in legal, civil, and cultural disruption. How about some birthdays today? What else do we have here? Let's see. Any interesting birthdays? Prescott Bush, 1895, the scion of the Bush family, although his real name might be Schertz. What else do we have? One of my favorite actors, Joseph Cotton, born on this day. 1905, the great Abraham Zapruder, the American businessman, amateur photographer, who filmed the Zapruder event, born on this day, 1905. James Mason, an actor I never really cared for. Today is his birthday. I don't know what it was about James Mason. I didn't like him. Let's see, who else? Eddie Arnold, 1918. Green Acres, it's the place to be. Farm living is the life for me. Let's see, who else? Who else? 1923, the decidedly pervy photographer Richard Avedon, born on this day, 1923. Who else? 1930, Jasper Johns, American painter and sculptor, a buddy of Andy Warhol, born on this day. The great Utah Phillips, American folk icon, born 1935, same year as my father. Anna Maria Alberghetti, she did those commercials for Italian seasonings. That's how I remember her. Oh, a golden light of human rights, compassion, empathy, equality. A woman that has an almost Buddha-like light emanating from inside of her, born on this day. And I'm talking about Madeleine Albright. Czech American politician and the 64th United States Secretary of State. Roger Ailes, the man who started Fox News, born on this day, 1940. Don Nelson, one of my favorite quirky basketball coaches, also born on this day in 1940 as well. Don's still around. Roger isn't. Let's see who else. Jerry Quarry, the Great White Hope, also known as Muhammad Ali's punching bag, born in 1945. Today's Brian Eno's birthday. Happy birthday, Brian Eno. I think tomorrow isn't tomorrow like David Byrne's birthday? They're like born one day apart, which is why they are so effective when they work together. Brian Eno, one of the few people that actually speaks out about situations in this world that are crackling with third rail intensity. Let's see who else. Chaz Palminteri. George Brett. Today's George. I like George Brett. Interesting character. One of the great hitters of all time. Today's Dan Patrick's birthday. American sports announcer. And let's see, anybody else interesting? I think yesterday was Dennis Rodman's birthday, if I'm not mistaken. I think yesterday was Rodman's birthday. The great diplomat, crossdresser in NBA star Dennis Rodman, born yesterday. Let's see, anybody else that's remotely interesting? As you get closer and closer to present time, I think people become less interesting. Ray Lewis, the football player who is connected to the murder of two men right after the Baltimore Ravens won their first Super Bowl. Today's his birthday. He's also a Hall of Famer. Let's see, anybody else? No. Yeah, the new people, Andy Murray. That's for Emily. Emily's the big soccer player, big tennis player, big tennis fan. Andy Murray's birthday today. We've talked about him on the show before, on her show, mostly. So those are your birthdays for today. Happy birthday to all those people. If today is your birthday and I left you out, happy birthday to you too. Let's get into the chat room here for a little bit. Let's see if we got a few more comments. Oh, we have lots. Let's see. Namaste. Just a visit, going back. Okay, Mary. Thanks for dropping in. Deprived of the use of quite a few people on my radar these days. Hey, Robert. Finally got here. Diana's in the chat room. Welcome, Diana. Nice to see you in there. Well, here we go. It's another day. It's going to be pushing close to 100 here in Texas. We have massive rain in other parts of the country. California's got earthquakes. Yellowstone is shuddering. Hawaii is bleeding lava. The ring of fire is undulating, vibrating, humming. And we're all just in the first day of Uranus and Taurus. Hang on, it's going to be a heck of a ride. This is Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to 15 Minutes of Flame. I guess I should bring us back. Hold on. Oh, it feels good to be back. I'm watching a line of kids from the school walk out single file. What's going on? Maybe I'll just keep my eye on that little single file exercise across the street. See what's happening. That's it. So, hey, listen, have a great day, right? Stay connected to the earth, stay connected to your body, and stay connected to the spirits of all that is creation, the master of the universe, God inside of you. Stay connected to that to the best of your ability. That is your clearest path of navigation through this lifetime. And don't let anybody tell you any different. All right, I'm out of here. Use your head to discern. Use your head to discern what's real. Your heart stay open. What's possible?
You're listening to 15 Minutes of Flame with Robert Phoenix.